Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to draw your attention now to the next session on Industry 4.0 enablers. With 5G on the verge of becoming a reality, industry is revamping itself for the new age. In the coming years, we will witness smart factories, connected enterprises, and many more. I would like to call upon our esteemed speakers, Deepak Sanghi, Senior VP and IP Optical Networks, Airtel; Pravir Dahiya, Senior VP Network Operations, Tata Teleservices Limited; Rajiv Arora, Global Head of IT, Global Hub, Siemens; and the session will be moderated by Sukanta, Director, Sdela Consulting.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have with me a distinguished panel to discuss a very important topic of today's telecom and telecommunication and technology scenarios. I have Mr. Deepak Sanghi, Senior Vice President of Airtel, Mr. Rajiv Arora, Global IT Head of Siemens Worldwide, Mr. Pravir Dahiya, Senior Vice President Networks. So these are the gentlemen on my panel. And I would like to set the ball rolling immediately. But before I do so, I'd like to set a context on this entire panel discussion. We have come to a stage where communities are the center stage of the new world, not governments. Platforms are stronger than governments. The internet is becoming the biggest marketplace. Whether we talk of cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, climate change, everything in the center stage is the internet. YouTube is where you showcase your work. Gamified education and training is the order of the day, whether you are training high-skilled workforce in factories or whether you are talking about a simple training in a college. The timekeeper is no longer your watch, but it is the fast-changing market. The new boss is not the gentleman who is sitting in a larger cabin than you, but your consumer and your customer. People are moving from the reactive stage to the multi-active and the linear active. And that is why certain countries in the world have a higher GDP than others, because people are more and more moving into the linear active situation. Now, we have several questions which I would like to ask my esteemed panel members. One of the questions which I'd like to ask is that how far is India Inc. from switching on to the real Internet of Things, the real AR, VR, particularly in manufacturing, how manufacturing is getting into a phase of intelligent manufacturing, smart manufacturing. So for that, I'd like to start the ball rolling with Mr. Rajiv Arora. Rajiv, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Day. And once again, good afternoon to all of you. And welcome to the esteemed panel. So I would like to say that when you talk about real IIoT in the Indian industry, so we say that we are already there. From here, IoT will get more and more prevalent in all areas of manufacturing and plant operations. If I take up remote plant operations, preventive and predictive maintenance are the basis of connected machines, what we have. The digital twins, what we talk about, real-time monitoring through machine data, remote assistance and commissionings are no more a textbook theories what we have. They are all happening across the industries in our own country. Driving using intelligent use of data for man and machine productivity and to stay ahead of our competitions. So if I look at my own Siemens factory where we are worldwide, we are using a MindSphere platform, our own industrial IoT platform for connected devices to measure the performance parameters like vibrations, temperature, voltage, current, running hours also to do preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance. And these parameters are finally analyzed on multiple apps to create real-time alerts, early warning to the maintenance team on the floor when a replacement is due or actual machine is running on the runtime mode. We are also using multiple sensors of critical components and alert suppliers beforehand to supply material. This helps a lot to have a lead time for our customers also. Not only that, we are also now getting to a AI-based CCTVs, which not only help us capture data to prevent an accident in advance of the shop floor, but also help improve safety and well-being of our employees. So when I say that industrial IoT is very much prevalent, and thanks to pandemic, on one side as a boon for all of us, the digitization has accelerated in these times when we're all made to work from home or remotely to make things happen for us. So that's a brief I can share with you, Mr. Day, that what we as Siemens are looking at IoT platforms.
Rajiv, it's amazing the amount of work you're doing, and it's somebody who is not directly in the industry. It's an eye opener that you are doing so many AI-based stuff on the CCTV and using early warning systems to obviously reduce costs and make manufacturing far more easier and more high quality product output. Mr. Pravir Dahiya, could you tell us a little bit about where we are on automation on the Industry 4.0 and how we are moving into automation and in the new Industry 4.0? Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Day, and a very good afternoon to you as well as all the other panel members. It's really a privilege and an honor to be with your company today. One of the areas which I would like to emphasize is that automation and digitization have been a part of the ICT industry for a pretty long time. And therefore, it's important to understand where are we on the Industry 4.0 as a context, right? So I look at Industry 4.0 not just as a term of industrial revolution, but also as a step forward in the era of digital transformation, right? And the IoT piece is just one out of potentially 8 or 9 applications which Industry 4.0 is likely to bring in to all of us. And like Mr. Rajiv Arora very succinctly put forward, one of the biggest use cases is the predictive, let's say, maintenance and ensuring that all the sensors are able to pick up the data and we are able to process this data in terms of having the right big data analytics, etc., done up in a pretty good way. If you look at overall adoption rates, though, and I think that's one of the big questions which are ahead of us in terms of India's adoption rate and are we really there? We looked at about the top, let's call it 1,200 large enterprises in the country today, and the adoption rate is a pretty healthy 35% already of using such applications in one or other forms. They may not be today at the mature end of it, but at least they've made a pretty good beginning. And I think that's a very good sign for the industry as well as for all of us to see that the industrial revolution, as they call it in terms of Industry 4.0, is catching up in the country as well.
Thank you so much, Pravir. I think that sets a perspective that 35% is a pretty high number. And it was an eye-opener for me to learn this number. May I request Mr. Deepak Sanghi, Senior Vice President, Airtel, to tell us a little more about what's happening, and particularly Airtel is one of the largest telecommunication networks. What is happening in the telecommunication part of the business in the Industry 4.0 and how they're helping in intelligent manufacturing in any industry in which they are working on, preferably some use cases. Over to you, Mr. Deepak.
Thank you, Mr. Day, and my esteemed panelists. So two aspects, I would say. First, using the concepts of Industry 4.0 and IoT within Airtel, and second, how do we see industry changing and how we interface with it. So on the first aspect, as my fellow colleagues mentioned, Pravir and Rajiv, it's a evolving journey. There are applications, as if you say, the field force, telecom operator has huge field operations and areas including fiber maintenance to tower maintenance to surveys to geographic surveys, information collection, through some of the automated ways and even traditionally non-automated ways. So these are all areas where we are seeing evolving set of applications. Even handset and soft applications which act practically like IoT sensors in a softer way, these are pretty much prevalent. There are hundreds of applications that are now on place on handsets which we are using as internal applications to collect data, to collect information from field, and these are practically acting like on the fly actions in the field which were never possible earlier. The second aspect is the actions, the physical sensors and the machines which are not having direct human interface. They need specialized sensors, and that's where the second thing starts, the role of networks. These sensors need to have connectivity. Adding sensor is one part, but reliable communication, active low latency communication, these are areas which are seeing a lot of work. And especially before we go full-fledged on the mature phase of IoT and Industry 4.0, I believe industry is realizing need for having the suitable connectivity within their premises. And these premises range from as big as 50 square kilometer area of a mining plant to a port, to a manufacturing unit within some hundreds of meter spans. So various configurations and geographies, but there is an increased degree of sense whereupon industry has started preparing itself for that connectivity, which is a precursor to this evolution of 4.0 and IoT.
Thank you so much, Deepak. I think that gives a interesting perspective that the most fundamental thing is connectivity, and without connectivity, really nothing really happens. And it's ongoing 24/7 connectivity in the remotest of places where manufacturing is there. And you gave very nice examples of mining and various other industries which are in extremely remote areas, and that has to be centrally controlled by an equivalent of a NOC. So I would again like to circle back to Mr. Rajiv. I think it was very interesting what he was telling about the early warning systems and maintenance, and how they are doing some real work in switching on to the IIoT of in manufacturing. Rajiv, will you like to take the discussion forward in a little bit and tell us a little more interesting use cases?
Definitely, Mr. Day. So there are many multiple use cases. I can pick up a couple of them. Like if you look at, we are manufacturing transformers. And if I look at my own country, we install transformers in all locations worldwide. Now it comes to maintenance. It requires some sort of a deep technical experience to how to open a transformer, which requires its own time. So what we are using, what we have initiated right now with our own some of the powered houses is how to use AR and VR on an Android phone. So it really uses an Android phone and its features of camera and using AR, VR, which can remotely guide a layman how to open a transformer step by step, and can also give some sort of a guidance in a manual format in multiple languages on a simple Android phone. And once he or she is able to open a transformer, in case he finds a particular part which is a faulty, it's just that he has to bring a camera to the barcode which is there on that part particularly, and can really raise a request, a work order, which goes to our industry mall automatically and goes to our purchase order, and we can track it. So very simple thing that, and then the powerhouse can track that as the order been placed and what is the status of manufacturing and how it's going to get delivered by what time. So complete end to end. It's all linked together, leveraging the IoT platform to make it a success. That's one example I can give you. One more example, as what Pravir said, that we all are sitting at home right now, working mobile. But when we go back to offices, you'll be all surprised at how can we use sensors when we go back to offices. So we have already launched our own product, what we called Comfy, which is a safe return to office. with sensors on every seat, which gives you alert in case you reduce a disability to people. And we are using that for a smart return to office by which you can book a seat or a room before you go. So it helps you prevent that we don't book the overall office, and book only limited depending upon the guidance of every country by country what we have right now. So that every country has its own guidance. That's one. Second, there are sensors which helps you prevent to come closer to other human being in that building and help you improve safety. That's a second example I can give you how we are using the platform to drive it out. Third is that I can give you that we are using, as we said to you, the CCTV thing. We have an AI-based CCTV now, which are installed for inspecting the products. And this camera keeps getting intelligence built into it to improve the efficiency of the inspection, reduce the human efforts around it, but make it more machine-based, the efforts to inspect a product and improve the efficiency to almost like a Six Sigma process of 99.98 or 97% of having a product built at the right time. And this, since this camera gives back to the production line that this is a particular part of the ring which is getting having a sort of a defect, which need to be corrected out, drive it out. So complete cycle is an IoT-based cycle to drive it out. So there are a couple of 3 or 4 examples. I can keep giving example after example that how we are using an IoT-based platform to drive it out and how we can make a difference of its adoption in our manufacturing sector.
Rajiv, thank you very much. Those were very interesting examples and very helpful to all of us, particularly the smart return to office. That's amazing because that'll bring down the cost of organization. It'll use optimal usage of office space, which is always very expensive anywhere in the world. And it makes the employee far more comfortable. He has booked the time and he comes, he does his work and he goes away. And you don't have fixed offices. So you have converted the fixed office space into kind of a variable situation, something like a SaaS,
Yeah, so Mr. Day, so there we are going one step beyond right now. What we're looking at it, we are also going away the excess card also. We are saying your mobile phone or your smart watch becomes your access card. If you have booked a room or a seat, then only the access to a building will open up.
Yep.
So we're linking it from the end to end so we're trying to change the mindset of a person to make an activity-based offices rather than a typical old-fashioned office what we had before the pandemic time. This not only helps us optimize their real estate, but also helps for a human being like us when we are scared to go to office, for a mental satisfaction. Oh, I'm going to a safe place and I have a seat where I go back to offices.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. You're converting the activity-based into an activity-based office environment from an attendance-based office environment, because that makes a lot of difference. And the phone also is your attendance record for everybody, even for the employee as well as for the employer. I think this is going to really change, and it's going to have a large impact, of course, for larger organizations, but for SMEs, it can have a major impact, because for SMEs, their cost of office and cost of overhead is always much higher than, as a percentage, much higher than typically a large organization such as yours. So I think I'm going to circle back again to Mr. Pravir Dahiya, Senior Vice President Network of Tata Teleservices, to tell us a little bit more about the Industry 4.0 and how your organization, and give some use cases in your industry, particularly in the enterprise side of the business, which Tata Teleservice, I'm sure, is driving.
Thank you, Mr. Day. In fact, I would take a cue from my good friend, Mr. Sanghi, and continue on something what we've been doing on the field operations side in the telecom industry itself. Right now, one of the biggest assets for enterprise play in the telecom space is the optical fiber network, which has been laid out across the country. And really, this is something which is not entirely under the control of anybody, right? It's there in the ground, it's laid out, and there's hundreds or thousands of kilometers of this optical fiber cable laid throughout the country, through various geographies, whether they're mountains or there's valleys or even forests. The maintenance of this fiber is let out to people who are experts at identifying which fiber is broken and then joining them through a technique which we call splicing. Yep. And the typical manpower in the country today which does this activity is generally trained well to do that job, but they're not extremely highly qualified to be engineers and so on. However, they control a large amount of the traffic of the enterprise service. I mean, you gave us the Goldman Sachs example in the beginning. Their service could be running on one of those fiber pairs, and that's in the hands of a person who needs to join it in the middle of a desert or the middle of the mountains, right? So the need for having active understanding of what the person has been doing becomes very, very important. So one of the solutions which was built around, again, what I call the AI ML stream, not necessarily the IoT stream, was to ensure that whenever such a person goes out into the field to repair a fiber cable, he is actually joining each cable in that fiber rather than just joining one or two and coming back, because it's not physically possible for anybody sitting at the NOC or in the central operation center to really monitor what's going on. And an IoT solution was extremely expensive to deploy all across in the hundreds of thousands of kilometers of fiber which is there. So the solution which was built was based on machine learning, wherein the splicing machine itself was equipped with a camera, very similar to what Mr. Arora said. There's an intelligence built into the camera that monitors each and every splice. And when you take a picture in the end of the complete splice, that uploads it back into the servers. And the machine learning has taught the pictures in such a way that over a period of time, you could determine whether the person has joined all the splices, all the cables, or he has left a few, or he has probably done a cross patch or something like that, which could lead to problems in the future. This was an extremely useful application, and we could realize that almost 80% of the productivity of these, what we call splicers, went up in just a period of 1 year by deploying this kind of an application, which is not directly something which is linked to IoT, but a piece of the AI/ML portfolio, which again forms a significant part of Industry 4.0 and helped us a lot in terms of improving productivity as well as efficiency across the board for all our fiber maintenance in the country. Apart from this one, which is directly, I would call it a telecom based application, we've done some traditional, let's say, IoT kind of applications where we helped a company to, monitor and therefore be able to change filters in an AHU before they fail, right? Because typically that's an element which, if it fails, the complete system goes down, and then therefore there's a loss of productivity in the office or industry wherever it is installed. But if you are able to predict the failure of that by monitoring it carefully through IoT sensors, etc., you are able to, prevent the downtime, and that's critical. In any application, I think that really becomes very useful, whether it's manufacturing or whether it is elements like running of trains or running of any operation where there are moving parts involved, right? So in case there's a failure which can be prevented by identifying the deterioration of the components in advance, you can prevent that failure, which becomes extremely helpful.
Yeah, Pravir, thank you very much. I think some very, very interesting examples of how you're doing field monitoring of the optical fiber network. And that obviously goes all over the place, and it's in very remote areas. You don't know what is happening, and it is impossible to do such a monitoring in the physical interface. It's absolutely impossible. And also the predictability of downtime, the filter example was amazing, because that reduces our cost, a lot of cost, a lot of downtime. I think very good work you people are doing in this. You're really taking the industry to the 4.0 level. May I request now Mr. Deepak Sanghi to give us his experience on Industry 4.0 and what his organization is doing in terms of reaching that level of 4.0. Over to you, Deepak.
A very interesting example given by Pravir, and I will just try to add to that. I mean, these technologies are so powerful, they don't even change a one particular unit or manufacturing unit in private environment. They contribute across industries. I will give you one example. There is a case whereupon everybody of us, we must have heard, fleet management is a known case by now. The fleet management of excavators. So there are sensors and GPS sensors being put on excavators and JCB, we say. And the whole idea was to kind of, improve fleet efficiency. The real part was there was an application that kind of sprung out as a surprise. The surprise was, if this location is made known to operators like Airtel and BSNL and Tata, then wherever these excavators go and start work, we will know beforehand that, where this digging stuff is happening. And this has shrunk the information time. Otherwise, we put thousands of patrollers on routes, and they just keep looking for these, this kind of activities of digging and excavators and JCBs, almost like manually. We depend on, manual sites. So now these excavators are reporting themselves that where they are going to dig. And that is amazing. That tells you in advance that which location this excavator is going to dig, and you can go there, you can reach there, you can contact the guy, even in a remote fashion, and you can safeguard your assets of fiber and cable. So this is a use case which is like, kind of flowing out from a fleet management of excavator to application across a different industry of the same asset. And there will be many such use cases. Just as extension of this fiber management, there are drones being developed right now which take photographs and assisted by a machine, learning and artificial intelligence. Those pictures can be analyzed for an efficient installation and commissioning of antennas on a tower. This is a big problem of telecom industry today, because again, the kind of quality of manpower that is there, how well they have put that antenna, is the tilt right, is the alignment right, is the height right, if the right set of cabling is used, is cabling done right. So all of this can be done using drones. Drones take photographs, you can control, you can check on the fly. In fact, a system sitting at a central operation center can ensure whether drone has taken all these right photographs from all the right angles. And when those pictures are uploaded, it can be self-analyzed, and within minutes it can be fed back to the guy on the ground that, you have not done something right. So these are cases which nobody could have imagined earlier without a combination of, I would say, IoT, connectivity, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all over and above this, the automation and, active feedback over a distance. This is all coming together, and when this comes together, magic happens.
Thank you so much, Deepak. I think very interesting examples, particularly the excavator example. I can imagine excavators all over the place and in very small remote towns where a normal phone call doesn't go. Forget about knowing where the excavator is, And the guy whom you're sent to locate the excavator, he himself is missing. So you have now to send another guy to locate where he is, So this is the reality on the ground. And it's great that we are moving in this direction. And the drone example is very interesting. And I'm sure drones are used in many industries right now. And they are really helping out, again, in reducing costs and increasing overall efficiencies. So I have I think we have done 2 rounds, and we have got some very interesting use cases. I'd like to throw the discussion open to all of you. If you guys want to discuss any specific item or point which we may have left out in the initial rounds and which may be of interest to the audience. And the topic is, of course, anything on Industry 4.0. It could be even outside the actual work which you or your organization is doing. So I'd like to throw the open to discussion, open all of us to a quick discussion before we wrap up. So please go ahead. Anybody can go ahead, please.
So may I think, just start, and I think it's a point which I'm again taking a cue from Rajiv right in the beginning.
Yeah.
More around one of the major elements of Industry 4.0 is manufacturing, right? I mean, as an industry itself, and how we can get towards smart manufacturing. And one of the biggest areas and one of the biggest challenges, and therefore this whole subject of what can be an enabler to Industry 4.0, is that there will always be resistance to change. Right? You'll always find people finding problems with this. I mean, you go back in time when the teller machines were being transformed to ATMs, right, in the country, in the banks.
Yeah, yes,
there are
very
huge
interesting.
ruckus around.
Yes,
More recently, you had the complete farmer issue. I mean, leave aside the politics of it, but clearly it was another case of resistance to change, right?
correct.
But I think the resistance to change is kind of in human nature. And that's where I think we should probably spend a few minutes to understand how we can enable industry to embrace that change and also implement the change effectively to make smart manufacturing in industries possible.
Yeah.
Right? I have a couple of thoughts, and I'll probably invite Rajiv and Deepak also to comment on what they could probably contribute. See, one of the biggest things is that most of the times when we kind of implement change, we try to push change, right? We just say, okay, this is what we have to do and implement it. We do not take a buy-in from the people who are going to be impacted. And that's very, very crucial in my view. So we must take our people along with it. I mean, it should not happen that people feel this automation is going to take away our jobs and therefore we're going to be redundant and so on and so forth. The complete story about Industry 4.0 is to complement, not to replace.
So, Pravir, I can really add to that part what you said. Really, you got a very valid point, Pravir. What you rightly said, we need to embrace the change and not create a fear of losing a job.
Yep.
And I'll really go back to what Mr. Day initially said, that how the social media. So I normally say that the FANG model, if you look at the FANG, what is FANG? FANG is Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, Netflix, and Google. These 5 economy owners right now in this world have really transformed the ecosystem of ours, of driving the adoption of the technology, not only in our country, worldwide. And it is really changing at a very rapid pace with a sharp uptake worldwide. So what we are I'm just going through various industry forums, what we're seeing that, especially in the manufacturing area for the human workforce, we are working towards connecting or making our workforce in the factories to be digitally connected workforce, so that they embrace technology from the grassroots level rather than coming from a top-down approach, which is like a push from the top things, where we are not only helping them to only use the technology for an IoT for a manufacturing, but for his basic attendance, I shared in the beginning as an example, for getting his learning, how he can learn new technologies, for his health and safety. So what we have defined a complete persona of a blue-collar worker or a manufacturing worker, that what all a day in a life of a blue-collar worker is, and how can we induct technology to make him enable and become a digitally connected worker. And that grassroots level change, when we can look at him to embrace not only for his manufacturing things, but also for his safety, for his learning, for his growth, it is picking up that technology. That resistance is coming down. And this FANG model, what we call it out, is the one which is also helping make a change to the individual worker on the ground in the factories. So we are really working in many factories to do a pilot right now to get our what we call a blue-collar workers into a digitally connected workers, where they are embracing technology and not fearing a change, but embracing a change from a grassroots.
So that's a very interesting subject actually Pravir has put forward, and this has been a challenge in industry. Industry has continuously evolved, whether it is 1.0, 2.0 or 4.0. I mean, this question has been relevant forever in industry about graceful evolution rather than revolutionary evolution. And I believe this question will be much more relevant going forward. And as Rajiv also rightly said, it's a mindset change that is probably required. We need to re-equip the same set of people who are there, because I'm sure for a significant period of time, I mean, it's not a digital change as far as those people are concerned that one day everything will be automated. It's an evolution. So things are changing. Change is continuous. Change has been continuous. If we align to the relevant workforce and we align their mindset to this change, I believe they come along with it rather than resisting it. So that's a scenario that we have observed. And if we try to go in an aggressive way, try to catch, bull by the horn, things do not work out the way they are expected to be. We have seen this even in some of the other automation and transformative exercise within my organization, in Network Operations Center particularly, while we were initiating a couple of automation projects. And once we started training those people, we are aligning those people, and those people in fact felt that they are evolving. Personally, they are evolving, they are getting ready for this industry change. They came with a bang, they came at the forefront with full force. So I believe that realization is there in the larger workforce, that if they do not grow with this change, they are going to left behind. All I believe is that we need to bring them up to speed, up to this change, so that they also develop personally in the skill set and they feel more confident. Their employability rather increases in the industry rather than going down.
You rightly said, Deepak, because that's what we are trying to do. Because in case we as leaders can drive that kind of evolution, that we are helping you enhance your productivity, your employability, that makes a huge mindset transformation. And look at our own pandemic right now. In these 2 years, the rickshawala and a panwala are also using a digital payment right now, which was not there 2 years back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's something by we have to keep the things pushing for it, ensure that people embrace it. And that's what we as Siemens have taken about a grassroots level. I think a top-down approach, saying a grassroots level, how we can help you to help your learning platforms, to help you grow your productivity, your safety. Now, those small things which are very close to their heart is making a difference to adopt our technology, embrace this change, and this can help me improve my efficiency in manufacturing also for driving it out.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. One of the biggest, there are many industries. The aviation industry is an example where two things are very expensive. One is aviation fuel for running the aircraft. One is aviation fuel, and the second biggest component in their industry, which is expensive, is pilot retraining. Because of the continuous change in technology, the pilot retraining. So this example which Deepak gave is very interesting, that you are changing the mindset by retraining the people to newer technologies and newer ways of thinking, and to tell the employees that this retraining is very expensive for the company. It's not cheap. It's very expensive for the company, and you are getting ready for the industry. Tomorrow you can get a better job in some other organization. So I think retraining, which will be a continuous process now as going forward, retraining for Industry 4.0 for everybody. I'm not only for the frontline worker, but even for people like you and me. I need to be continuously retrained, and I have to rethink on what are the new changes which are really happening. So I think it's very good. We are kind of towards the end of our discussion. We have been at it for almost 40 minutes plus. If there are any other salient highlights which any one of you would like to make, or any one of you would like to say, or all of you would like to say, let's do the concluding rounds quickly. Any like a one-liner which you would say would be of interest to the audience. You please go ahead, Rajiv. Why don't you start with you?
I always say that life is a continuous change. We need to keep embracing it and leveraging out of it to become more efficient and effective, rather than fearing with the change. So that's for myself. I believe that change is a constant factor. Embrace it. Don't get fear with it.
Yes. So as the saying goes, there's nothing more constant than change, and change will always be there. And I think, Rajiv, that's and it's the management of change which we need to learn and we need to adapt to. Please go ahead, Pravir, your last thoughts.
No, thanks. Again, just a little one-liner on Industry 4.0, if I may. The way I look at it is, I think we are moving more towards a real-time economy overall, globally as well as in the country.
Yes.
And real-time economy needs real-time actions, which have to be based on real-time data. And therefore, the relevance of all the elements of Industry 4.0 is extremely important as we go forward. So a real-time economy needs real-time inputs from real-time data all the time.
I think that's very well said. I think industry is moving to a real-time situation. So it's no longer 8 hours of work, etc. Like even now, as you know, work from home has changed one thing, that you're working even at 11 o'clock at night, which you would never think of in the traditional industry. That's a very good thought. So Deepak, yeah, Rajiv is a classic example. Poor fellow sitting in Munich, and Rajiv, I know it's very late, so we'll let you go quickly. Deepak, your final thoughts, please.
Yeah, I would say that, times are really exciting. And with this technology change, I believe we are going on to embark on a journey of new level of efficiency, the way things happen in industry and, business is done across the globe. The only thing is important is, I believe, end of the day, the objective is to, have betterment for humanity, and as graceful as it can be, we should try to achieve this change with. So that's what is most important, I would say.
I think well summed up. I think Rajiv talks about the continuous management of change, and Praveen about how the economy is moving into a real-time situation 24/7. And I like Deepak's concluding thought that everything has to be ultimately done for the betterment of humanity and betterment for the next generation. So we leave the world to our kids. So they always say, okay, we have done something interesting. Our parents have done something interesting for us. And I'd like to thank all of you personally. And I would certainly send a thank you email to each one of you, and we should stay in touch. And I said, whenever you're in Delhi, it'd be great to meet you gentlemen. And with this, thank you once again.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that session.